Hi guys, I'm gonna make a video because this is really too much to just type out and put in a status. This is kind of a public apology, I guess. Not everyone knows, but anyone who's close to us knows. Abel and I, since we've been married, we've been kind of in agreement that we would wait to have children at least a year, so I've been on birth control. It's worked fine, no complications or anything. But Sunday at church, our Sunday school teacher, Byron, he got on the subject of birth control and made us both start thinking. So I've been doing some studying this week, whether or not a Christian should use birth control. And honestly, it's a very hard thing to study because the Bible doesn't say much about birth control itself, simply because they didn't have the technology we have back then, but people did withhold children. One instance is in Genesis 38. A woman named Tamar, her husband died, and it was the custom back then that if your husband died, you were to marry the next brother, I believe it was. It was either the youngest brother or the next brother. So don't quote me on either one of those. I'm not 100% sure, but one of the brothers, definitely, it was their duty to marry the widow and produce children with her, to leave an heir of their brother. And that way, when the woman grows old, she'll have someone to take care of her and, share the inheritance. So this man, the brother of the one who died, Onan, he gladly married Tamar. But he gladly done what he had to do. But he didn't create a child, if you know what I'm saying. I have monitored this video closely, and I've went through my friends list and found all those under 18, or at least young enough to not, they shouldn't be hearing this stuff. So don't worry about your children, because I've blocked this video from them. So that being said, I guess I'm just going to shoot straight with you. He gladly consummated with her, but he never you get what I'm saying. He did on the ground, not in Tamar. And his intentions in doing that were evil, because he did not want a child that was not going to be his. It would be his brother's heir, which means he would have to split the inheritance with the child and the widow. He didn't want to do that. And God knew that. He knew his heart, so God killed him for it. Now people use that as a stance against abortion, or not abortion, but birth control. Because technically it is a form of birth control. You're preventing birth. But this video specifically is going to talk about what I use, Trinessa. It's a mix of, I don't know if I'm pronouncing these right, but norgestimate and ethinyl estradiol, I think. It's a combination of progesterone and estrogen. Okay. There's 3, I didn't know this until last night because, like I said, I've been studying and I found this guy on YouTube that was talking about it. I'm going to try not to cry. So I'm just going to go in. I'll tell you, there's 3 uses of Trinessa, or this norgestimate and ethinyl estradiol. There's many other birth controls out there, and they all have different purposes. But this video is specifically about this one because it's the one I use. Anything that is estrogen and progesterone based, there's 3 steps that it takes. I guess you would call it. There's 3 uses. First step is it prevents the release of an egg or ovulation during your menstrual cycle. It makes the vaginal fluid thicker to help prevent sperm from reaching the egg. Okay, those 2 things are, they're just there, whatever. But being a Christian, our belief is that life begins at conception. Whether you agree with that or not, it really doesn't matter to me. I'm just going by what Scripture says, because Scripture is what guides our lives as Christians. And if you were a Christian, I'm hoping that you believe the same way. Psalms 139:13 says, "Indeed, you created my inward parts. You wove me in my mother's womb." Verse 16 says, "Your eyes saw my embryo." And in Hebrew it transforms to unformed substance. And in your book, they were all written, days fashioned for me when there was not one of them. And then Jeremiah 1:5 says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you came out of the womb, I consecrated you and appointed you as prophets of the nation." So, like I said, our belief is life begins at conception. Okay. So, in case there's people out there that doesn't know how this works, I've already said that I've blocked this from young viewers, but some people just don't know. I wasn't 100% sure of how everything worked until last night. So I will read what I found out. This is from WebMD. I know some people give it a bad rep, and most of the time I don't rely on it. But I feel like people need to know this stuff, because if I would have known the 3rd step of this progesterone and estrogen, I never would have started taking it. Never. Okay, it begins at ovulation. Each month inside your ovaries, a group of eggs start to grow in small fluid-filled sacs called follicles. Eventually, one of the eggs erupts from the follicles. Ovulation. It usually happens about 2 weeks before your next period. Hormones rise. After the egg leaves the follicle develops into something called the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum releases a hormone that helps thicken the lining of your uterus, getting ready for the egg. The egg travels through the fallopian tube. After the egg is released, it moves into the fallopian tube. It stays there for about 24 hours, waiting for a single sperm to fertilize it. All this happens on average about 2 weeks after your last period. If the egg isn't fertilized, then it moves through your uterus and disintegrates. Your hormone levels will go back to normal, and your body sheds the thick lining of the uterus, and your period starts. If one sperm does make its way into the fallopian tube and burrows into the egg, it fertilizes the egg. The egg changes so that no other sperm can get in. At the instant of fertilization, your baby's genes and sex are set. The instant of fertilization, your baby is who it is. If the sperm has a Y chromosome, your baby will be a boy. If it has an X, it will be a girl. The egg stays in the fallopian tube for about 3 to 4 days. But within 24 hours of being fertilized, it starts dividing fast into many cells, but keeps dividing as it moves slowly through the fallopian tube into the uterus. Its next job is to attach to the lining of the uterus. This is called implantation. Okay, so now that we know the process of how everything works, I want to read the third use of the birth control. Like I said, the first one is it prevents the releasing of an egg or ovulation during your menstrual cycle. So it does what it says. It prevents the release of an egg. So there's no chance that you're going to get pregnant, pretty much. It's only 99.7% effective, but, that's still pretty high. And then the second step is it makes the vaginal fluid thicker to help prevent sperm from reaching an egg, which in turn means that it keeps the egg from being fertilized. Which we know now that fertilization means life, pretty much, what it boils down to. And then the third step. Given the first two don't work, the third step is it changes the lining of the uterus or the womb. To prevent the attachment of a fertilized egg. And if a fertilized egg does not attach to the uterus, it passes out of the body. Like nothing happened. would have known that. I never would have started taking it. I believe every woman should know this. I feel so guilty because I should have looked into it more. Don't ever take your doctor's word for it. We live in a society that sees children as burdens. It's something to be avoided until you're ready. You're never going to be ready for children. You'll always find some excuse. So if you've watched all of this video, and you're either on birth control like I am, or you're contemplating it for you or your daughter, please look into it. And for those of you who want to say it's not likely that being on birth control that an egg even gets fertilized, I appreciate it. But just as much as we don't know if an egg has been fertilized, you don't know that it hasn't. Just the thought of there being a fertilized egg inside me at one point, already set, already has its DNA, already has the sex, the genes, and I put something in my body that kept that baby from being able to attach to me, to grow, and it just passed out like trash. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I just want to say to anyone who knew that I was taking birth control, if you knew how it worked, I'm so sorry. I definitely do not condone it. I do not condone traditional birth control at all. I don't care if you're supposed to quit cold turkey or not, but I do. I'm not taking it anymore. I wouldn't wish this feeling on anyone. I've prayed and I've prayed. I couldn't sleep last night. I just laid there. Please pray for me. Thank you for watching.